With all the chaos surrounding the Marvel Cinematic Universe over the past few years and all the drama that's come out just in the past few weeks, a lot of people have had doubts about The Marvels, the movie that's coming out November 10th, starring Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, and of course several other characters that people really just quite frankly aren't interested in. But we've continued to hear pushback on that from the mainstream media, who said this is going to be just an absolute triumph, a massive success. We've heard from the director herself, don't worry, our movie's going to be so different. You don't have to worry about superhero fatigue. Well, it certainly sounds like this movie is going to be different for the MCU, if by different you mean nobody actually shows up to see it. Because as of today, even some of the mainstream outlets that have been very resistant to report about how dire the box office looks for the Marvels, they're finally being forced to admit 4 weeks out that this looks horrific for them. The Marvels headed for $75 to $80 million opening, roughly 50% lower than Captain Marvel 3-Day early box office look. And as I stated, that 75 to 80 million number, that's on the high side of where a lot of other box office prediction outlets are putting it right now. Last week, we got our first actual tracking, and it looked abysmal. Not just embarrassing in terms of what they've done recently, but one of the worst openings in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's what it was looking like. You look at this long-range box office projections for the Marvels. Opening weekend, between $50 and $75 million. Domestic total range, 121 to 189. That would put it, even if it's on the high end of that, that would still put it less than the Eternals box office opening, which was a miserable failure for them. Not even thinking about something like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which opened to over $100 million, but only got about $450 million worldwide. So now, after all the defense that the mainstream has ran for Marvel, for the MCU, and specifically for the character of Captain Marvel, they're now being forced to admit that even their own tracking, which was strangely about the same for something like The Flash before it bombed catastrophically. 75 to 80 million is what they predicted for that before it had a $55 million opening weekend. They're being forced to admit that the interest level is just not there for this movie. But of course, even while saying that, even while admitting that for the core demographic, for men, they're not very interested in this. It's tracking less than virtually everything they've put out. More along the lines of something like, oh, I don't know, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And even for women, the interest level is much lower than the rest of the movies that have come out recently. They even admit that. Captain Marvel's pacing behind Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, in both men and women under 35. We're told The Marvels is well below the top performing MCU titles among men under 35. Current comps are also against Thor, Black Adam, and The Flash. So right now, it's even drawing less interest than some of those other things that have flopped recently. But they just couldn't help themselves. They had to bring up the actor strike. Well, obviously, they say that one of the reasons that the tracking doesn't look good is because they don't have the stars out there to promote this thing. I'm going to be honest with you. I've said this from the beginning. When it comes to the Marvels, although I would agree with other things like, say, Dune Part 2, stuff like that, not having the actors to promote it could heavily influence it. In this case, I think it's beneficial for Marvel. I think there is going to be a lot less clips and things going around of the actors saying this or that. All these actresses out there talking about how stunning and brave it is to do an all-female superhero movie. I think all that would keep people away from the theater. Just being really honest with you. I think that after everything we've seen from the reaction from the fan base, I think if there were clips out there of the stars of this talking about how incredible it is to be part of this for the MCU and breaking barriers, I think it would only anger people further. So you can use that as an excuse if you want, just like you tried to use COVID as an excuse and this and that. They've all failed, right? Every excuse we've seen people make for the failures of the MCU has turned out to be just that, an excuse and not an actual reason. The reason is because they continue to make content that people don't want to watch. They continue to focus on characters that people aren't interested in. And above all, they continue to focus on other things outside of simply telling a compelling story. That's why the MCU's fallen the way it has. You can try to make all these other excuses in the world that you want, including it's just the actors' strike. That's why this movie will have failed. But at the end of the day, Marvel Cinematic Universe fans have walked away from this franchise. And I think it's going to be especially clear come the Marvels just how many people have truly tuned out. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comment section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.